explain to everybody what we're going to be doing tonight, how it's going to work. So Diana, whenever you're ready to hit record.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
All right, welcome everybody to the December already 2021 meeting of CB1's Land Use, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. I'm Patrick Cannell. I'm normally the chair of the committee, but tonight we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. Given the first item that's on our agenda, I will need to recuse myself, which I'll explain in a moment. So Laura is going to chair the meeting from that perspective, and I'll hand it over to her to chair in a second. Once that item is done and a resolution presumably has been voted on, we're going to adjourn the meeting briefly, stop the recording, don't go anywhere. We'll all then resume the meeting, resume the recording, and I will resume chairing the meeting because Laura has a prior commitment that she needs to be ready for. And we didn't really have any other way to do this for the other two items that remain. So the first item on our agenda is an NYPD Section 195 notice of an intent to lease office space at 27 Cliff Street with accessory parking at 80 John Street. I am president of the board of the condominium at 80 John Street, at least the residential portion. So for that reason, I have to recuse on that item and therefore cannot chair the meeting, which here is going to be, again, just the one item is our first meeting, then our second meeting. After we adjourn for just a moment and come back, that's how we're doing it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Patrick. Well, you have to be an assistant chair of a meeting. It's great to have Patrick as the chair to make everything easy and to have Diana helping with so many things. Okay, welcome everybody. We will kick off with, do we have our presenters here from the city?
Yes, I believe we do. And if either of them can let me know if someone needs to be granted screen share for materials, let me know who that is and I'll turn it over.
Will that be Pauline or Anna? Do you have the deck and will you be screen sharing?
Hi.
So I noticed some of our DDC folks were on the attendees list, and I'm not sure all of them made it to the panelists.
The first item is the 195 application. It's the notice of intent to acquire office space for the NYPD and DCAS. So we'll need to get through that item first, and then is the Manhattan Detention Complex PDC item, and then the 5 World Trade Center item.
Understood.
Right. So is the DCAS and police precinct team here? Would you like to present the relocation?
Anthony and Jason.
Jason Ortiz with DCAS is present.
Wonderful. Are you the presenter?
I am not.
Oh, is your collaborator here to present?
I see Lieutenant Andriano on
Yes, hi, this is
panel.
how are you? This is Lieutenant Anthony Andriano with NYPD Facilities. How are you?
I'm good. Are you going to do a presentation, or how can we help you?
This is going to be more conversational. I'm actually
okay.
in the Facilities Management Division. We're the liaison between the end user, in this case, the World Trade Center Command, and other city agencies. My unit is responsible for site search, program development, design, and construction. We were scheduled to have Captain Daniel McGee, the commanding officer of the World Trade Center Command, present for this application. Unfortunately, he's been called overseas, and I do believe we have Lieutenant Rory Mangra on the call, and he is available to talk a little bit about the operation, and then myself, Lieutenant Mangra, and Jason Ortiz can talk or answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so why don't you explain to our committee what you're proposing to do and how many cars and how much space and the sort of facts of what you are doing, and then we'll go from there. How does that sound?
That sounds fine from my end. Jason, would you mind talking a little bit about our intent to acquire the office space?
Absolutely. So DCAS was leasing was activated to search for office and parking for a new World Trade Center command unit in and around the World Trade Center vicinity. And we searched a number of properties, and the only property that fulfilled the requirements was the 80 John Street and the 27 Cliff office component. One is parking and one is office, respectively. NYPD toured the site. They accepted the site. And since that time, 2 to 3 years ago, we've been negotiating this deal. We are now at a point where we have a finalized or near finalized lease draft with the owner and seeking to complete and acquire the 195 so that we can formally execute this lease and provide NYPD with this very critical site.
And can you tell us how much office space, how many people, how many cars? Do you have any of the statistics?
I can tell you the square footage.
Okay.
The office component
Sure.
is approximately 5,200 square feet. That's on DCAS measurement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I take that back. The office component is 15,000 square feet. The
Okay.
parking component is 6,300 square feet. Those are round numbers.
And then in terms of staffing, there are currently 161 members assigned to the World Trade Center Command. There is a possibility that number could go to 181 members. And at current, we have 24 total vehicles assigned to the command. That number will not change. That's a combination of 19 marked vehicles and 5 unmarked vehicles. Those
Wait,
range from, and
19
they're
marked. Okay, 5 unmarked. Uh-huh.
correct. And those range from sedans to typical SUVs, Ford Explorers, with some specialty vehicles.
Okay, and do the officers drive to, is there an issue of the personal cars coming to this garage and then trading for a police car, or how does that, is it, the parking is only for the work vehicles, is that correct?
The parking in the garage is strictly for work vehicles, only
Okay.
work vehicles. You know, it's interesting. Anecdotally, we're finding more and more of the police officers that work in Lower Manhattan are using public transportation. And I think I mentioned this on another meeting. We did a survey a couple of years ago, and if congestion pricing does pass, I think more than 60% of the officers that work in Manhattan will be using mass transit.
Well, that's
the
idea.
Present company included. I come in from Staten Island.
Okay, well, that should be easy to get there from Staten Island.
Absolutely.
And okay, do you have more content to present, or shall I open it up for questions from the committee?
We're available to answer any questions. You know, it's a straightforward office use for us. It's we will operate 24/7 over three platoons. Members assigned to the command are responsible for patrolling and maintaining site safety at the World Trade Center campus.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Oh, I see a lot. Okay, Vicki, I think you were first.
Thank you, Laura. Just I had, a question, a bit of a concern, if you can respond. When you said specialty vehicles and, however many vehicles, you would be entering off of Platt Street, right? It's a small street, and there's a nice restaurant there on the corner. You will be cognizant of the fact that this will increase traffic. We love having police here, by the way. Let me start with that.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Oh, no, I'm a big supporter of your help. I just wanted to know that you are aware that this is a very small street. You won't be having sirens. You won't be doing stuff to disturb. I live on that corner, so along with thousands of others.
That is, again, I believe Lieutenant Rory Mangre from the World Trade Center Command is on the call as well. But yeah, we are fully cognizant of how narrow the street is. We're fortunate that this, it's not a precinct function, so you will not have the officers going in and out all day long. You certainly won't hear the sirens.
Okay. You good, Vicki, for now?
I am, thank you.
Okay, Pat?
Vicky actually asked one of my questions which was about the quality of life issues, the noise and traffic and having people blowing the horn. So that's good to hear that the officers are cognizant of the fact that it is a residential community, number one. Number two, I didn't quite understand. So by allotting these cars for the police, does that mean that were private citizens formerly parking there? Did I,
I, gotcha.
is that taking parking away from what used to be, the public?
So this is an existing garage
Mhm.
that was rented out to a private entity, and the landlord has decided instead to lease out the space to the city of New York.
Okay.
So I assume the private entity means that it wasn't open to the general public.
No, this was something I think he leased out the entire space as the NYPD is doing for, I think it was, I don't remember the use, but I think it was just one occupier.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Patrick.
Yeah, thanks. And Pat, just to clarify, so this garage is a 29 space garage in the basement at 80 John Street, which is largely a residential building. It's my building. There are 3 commercial units in the building, 2 on the John Street side, and then the garage, which is on the Platt Street side. The garage is operated, while it's owned as a condominium unit, it's operated as a public parking garage by, I don't know, it's iPark or whoever runs it. So those spaces would be gone, but that's okay. Look, that's business and that's okay. I will tell you that when this issue came up, the board of our building immediately had some concerns that I would like to explain to the committee. I would ask that they sort of be taken into account in the resolution. First and foremost, like Vicky, the folks in our building welcome this presence of the NYPD World Trade Center Command. We also had an initial conversation with Lieutenant Andriano and with Captain McGee, who were very accommodating with their time and got on the phone with us very quickly, along with their folks at DCAS, to explain to us what their intent was with the space. And what we explained to them and what we would like the committee to understand in coming to the resolution is that the way this residential building works, that garage access is critical to the residential component of the building because it's how we get deliveries, it's how we do move-ins and move-outs of large items. It is one of our main ADA access points. And so for that garage or garage door access to be cut off, the residential elevators go down into the basement level where that garage is. It's just it's a balance, and it's been perfect for 15, 17 years, however long we've been a condominium, in how we've worked with the current garage operator. And so we expressed concern with the NYPD that continue, and we're cognizant of the special security concerns that are there. So we've started conversations with Lieutenant and the captain about access cards and ID lists and that sort of thing, which I think would be palatable to our residents, but which absolutely must come to pass. We can't have the NYPD closing and locking the door for a million reasons, mostly including safety and ADA access. So I say that both with thanks to the lieutenant and the captain for their time and for their understanding and willingness to work with us, but also for the committee to consider in coming to the resolution. And I would just ask if Lieutenant Andriano can confirm here for us on the record that is his understanding as well.
That is 100%. This is Lieutenant Andriano. You are 100% correct. And I think, Patrick, if you remember at the end of the call, the one thing that the captain and I both stress is we want to be a good neighbor. It's an office building that we're looking to turn into a home for the next 20 to 40 years. So at the very least, we're here to be good neighbors and good partners with the community.
And we look forward to it. Thanks again for your time, sir.
Lieutenant Mangra here from the World Trade Center Command. I'll answer that too. And like Lieutenant Adriano said, we're not there to inconvenience anyone, and we're always going to be available should anybody in the building or for any reason, we're at your disposal. We're there to be neighborly and good tenants as well.
That's really wonderful. Let's see,
Thank you.
who's next? Was it Paul or Alice? You guys know?
Laura, I'm sorry, it's Vicky. Just 1 second. I just want to conclude this conversation with Patrick. Thank you, Patrick, because I think you guys will be good neighbors. A lot of the times when, private individuals were coming and going, they would park on the sidewalks, they would block the streets. At night, people would, ask them to wash their cars. So I think that this is a welcome change. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, Paul.
Okay, very quick question. Everything sounds pretty positive so far, and I'm encouraged that you're able to get off-street parking. As you probably know, that's a sensitive issue. All the cars parked from official agencies on the streets of Lower Manhattan. Just to clarify, does that mean that your operation will have no vehicles parking on the streets because you're using this parking facility?
Are you guys, can one of you answer that?
Oop.
Anthony, maybe, or?
Go ahead, Anthony.
Sorry, I was just having a little problems here. No, the garage does not satisfy all the needs of the department, so there will be some vehicles parked on the street. We're fortunate enough that we are still in very close proximity to the first precinct where this unit is currently housed. So we'll be able to do overflow parking at the first precinct if necessary.
So no overflow parking on the narrow streets of the financial
not at all.
district?
Not at all.
Okay.
In that case, I would encourage the committee to applaud this perhaps precedent of obtaining space for their vehicles if needed, not on the streets of our area. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, Alice.
Well, sounds good. Hello. Thank you. Could you just ask a couple of questions? How many spaces do you estimate you need for this portion of for DCAS in this new building? And actual parking space, I see a square footage estimate.
Well, they said 24 vehicles with 19
Oh, I'm sorry.
marked cars and 5 unmarked cars earlier.
Yeah, so you had said, Patrick, there were 29 spaces, or somebody said it at 80, John. Or
It's occupancy is 29 spaces. I don't know if that layout works for NYPD. Those vehicles might be a little bit bigger.
Uh-huh. And how many parking spaces do you currently have? Estimate about that many right now at Varick Street at the Erickson Street location, or are there any there now? Or
Yeah, so we're utilizing on-street parking at the first precinct and at our substation.
And how many spaces are you utilizing at the first precinct?
So it's approximately 10 spaces that we're using.
So that would mean the 10 spaces will now be no longer used at the first precinct?
Well, any overflow parking any vehicles that can't stay in the garage would be in fact parked either at the first precinct or at our substation.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm kind of interested in where you're leaving, not where you're going to. And being somebody who represents Northern Tribeca and a few blocks or 1.5 blocks from Erickson Street. So there has been a cry for many years to have a little less placard parking up at the first precinct area. And so with the understanding that we may lose 10 or, there's 10 spaces that might be open, it would be nice to believe that those could maybe go back into the pool for the public or not necessarily be taken up by, that area of being open to the public again. So that's what I'm getting at. So I don't know if that's something we can address in the resolution or not. And then there is sort of just curious, are there any plans, in other words, what happens to the space? Are there any plans for the police first precinct building? Is there what's going to change in the interior with this, 165 members leaving that building? Is somebody else filling it? What are the plans for the police headquarters? Is it going to remain a police headquarters and such? What's the plan for that building?
So the precinct or the building itself is overcrowded, which is why we've been site searching for a new home for the World Trade Center Command. We do not have any intent to move any additional units into that building. At the very least, we'll give more space to the members of the first precinct that are working in there. One of the things that we've been striving to do is create more community spaces for members of the community to be able to come to the precinct, whether it's to host a meeting like this or just to have some usable space for council meetings and whatnot. So we'll look to that, but until we have a definitive proceed on this, we haven't started any planning. But as I think you may know, we're in the process of building 2 new precincts, one in the Bronx and one in Queens, the new 40 and the new 116. And as part of our mantra going forward, it is to dedicate a certain amount of square footage for community space and community use.
But the first precinct building on 16 Erickson or 19 Barrack will remain.
It will remain a precinct.
Okay, because there is great concern that when a city building is being, altered in any way, particularly one as beautiful as that, that it remains a public building is, something that I think this community would be very interested in seeing, or at least certain members of it. So your statement that this will remain the same I think that should be registered in our resolution. And also,
wait,
just one question that I have is that I'm not understanding is just the last question is the building landmarked or not? We can't seem to get clarity on that. Do you know?
You know what? I don't know off the top of my head. I can look into that.
Thank you. Okay, that's it, Laura. Thanks very much. Thank you all.
Oh, okay, so Anthony, you're agreeing that the building will still remain the first precinct. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
You're just moving this one function out of there.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So Rosa.
Thank you very much, Laura. So my concern, it's interesting because we're all talking about parking. So first of all, welcome to the neighborhood. We're excited to have you here. That is very much in my neighborhood as well. I think the concern for me is I understand that you have the official service vehicles taken care of within the parking area of 80 John. But I think that, as we've expressed, the concern is actually about the street parking and the placard parking. And so if you have 160 to 180 officers coming in daily, then in 3 shifts, that's talking about 54 to 60 people. That's theoretically possibly 54 to 60 people driving in, which might mean possibly 54 to 60 private placard parking vehicles on our very, very narrow and congested streets.
So Rosa, I'm just going to interrupt you because earlier in the presentation, we were told that that the police mostly take public transit to Lower Manhattan and they would not be driving.
That's if congestion prices.
No, they said, I think, well, okay, I'll let them clarify, but my understanding is that the intent was not to drive.
Yeah, there are a good amount of members of the service that are taking mass transit to and from work now. I cannot definitively state that they will all be taking mass transit, but we are also fortunate enough to be in close proximity to police headquarters. And as you know, there's ample parking in and around that site for the NYPD. So it's just a short walk away.
Well, actually, I'm working on a project that's right next to police headquarters, and I know that there is enormous spillover onto the streets all around the area beyond the ample parking that is already there, and beyond the underground lot that was taken over. So there actually isn't ample parking. So I absolutely see that as an addition of more placard parking in the neighborhood and on the streets that are already filled with vehicles.
I'll add to that. The majority of the members of this command, probably off the top of my head, I would say 60 to 70% of them take the train. So we occupy minimal street parking over here. There's just no, as we all know, parking is very challenging in the neighborhood. So the majority of people opt to take the train since we're close to the train station is literally right outside the door. It's just more convenient. So I just envision more of the same. And
Okay,
like,
well, I think we'll put something in the resolution about that because obviously we're trying to reduce congestion down here and then, closer to One Police Plaza, there's, interest in reclaiming some of the open space around there to make a park. So just so you know what's happening from the community board perspective. Okay, is that, Rosa, are you good or can we do more?
Well, at 40%, that would still mean 24 vehicles that aren't currently parking in this area now, just so we understand, like, number wise, we're talking about 24 vehicles in the immediate vicinity being added onto our streets. I mean, like, look, in the grand scheme of things, I honestly do welcome you to the neighborhood. I think that's wonderful. I think we do have a parking issue on our streets that we need to address, and it's specifically apparent in that neighborhood because these are older streets. They're narrow streets, and it's very apparent that crosswalks, street corners, everything, it just all gets covered up with placard parking, and it's insane to walk through every day. Much less, I don't know how people drive through it, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rosa. Tammy, please.
I think that other people are covering the same things that I am about the parking. But I do
Okay.
ask, what at the World Trade Center command, will there be other task forces and transit that are in your new offices that are partnered with you that are not represented on the call today who may have vehicles?
no, so we are a standalone command. We're part of the Counterterrorism Bureau, so we would be it. It's just us.
Okay.
And you mentioned that overflow, I'm a little confused by the math, I guess, because at one point it was 10 cars that you have currently at the first precinct. We now will have the potential for 24, and yet you will still need overflow? Did I get my math wrong here? I apologize.
No, we have about 10 spots that we share with the first precinct. So whatever we can't get into the garage, for example, let's say we have a deployment coming up and it's easier to stage at the first precinct, we'll stage down here. But as far as, it should be minimal cars coming back here.
And I apologize if I missed this one. How many placards are currently assigned to your unit for its current location?
So for personal vehicles, 147 were issued. But like I said earlier, the majority of our members actually take the training. So we don't have 147 cars coming in on a daily basis.
Wait, could somebody clarify that? That's quite a statistic you threw.
I'm getting there. What percentage of placards will no longer be required? And how many will be reduced? And what can you pledge to reduce on the move? Because that's a huge number. And it's a little overwhelming, judging by where we're going.
Oh. Yeah, so those placards are issued to personal vehicles, not department vehicles. The parking garage is just mainly for department vehicles.
So I understand that, but my question, I guess, still remains: how many would be available to? I mean, why do you need so many placards if you're going to have parking spots and people are moving by train versus personal vehicles? Why do you need 140? We're just trying to understand, because we are, in an area that is heavily overrun by this.
Right. No, I understand. So these placards are issued every year. The officers apply for them if they so desire. A lot of them don't. Some of them do, and they don't drive into work at all.
So I guess
So,
I'm
so
confused about the
just
need for
so you know,
the
having that placard gives that officer, even if they're not using it to drive to and from work every day or park near the command, we're also called to respond to other commands, other details, other assignments throughout the year, where we may have to report to the Bronx and park near the 4-4 precinct or in Queens at the 105. That's why that placard still is submitted for and why they get that assigned to them. And it's done, as Rory said, it's done annually, but it gives you the ability to park near other police precincts, access the police academy, training centers, etc.
Okay, Tammy, do you have other questions?
I just would like them to be willing to go on, on record in writing to pledge to not have the people park on the local roads in the FIDI area.
Okay. Anthony and Rory, what do you think?
Well, I certainly think go ahead, Rory.
So all our officers, and I personally inspect around the first precinct to ensure that if they are parking, it's either it's a legal spot. They're not just parking on fire hydrants, bus stops, crosswalks. They don't do any of that. We take that very seriously because you're impacting other people and it creates a hazard. So that's something we take very seriously.
I think the concern is there's so few parking spaces and so little place to drive. It's just such a jam that we're concerned about any extra cars coming into the district that don't need to. So I guess we would hope that.
Sorry, I understand, and it's something that I can keep an eye on. And
Okay.
if it becomes, because again, it's very, very limited parking, and we're going to encourage everyone to keep doing what they're doing or start taking mass transit. It's just going to be easier because we'll be able to have a facility where they can store all their equipment and everything, so they really don't need to drive.
Right. Yes, we agree with that. Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Rory. Okay. Did the hands show up on here in the order that they were raised on this list on my right? Do you know?
I don't think it's in order that they were raised.
Okay, then in that case, I think Jason was next. I think we'll do Jason and then Betty and Alice. I don't know if you have another question or you just didn't take your hand down. So it's
I was just going to respond to Alice's question that the building in question on Erickson Place is part of the Tribeca West Historic District as
Yeah,
far as its landmark status.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's landmarked, right? So
Well, it does mean it's landmarked.
No, it's not the building itself is not necessarily
okay.
landmark.
Can you
Anyway,
guys?
we'll talk it off.
Can we talk about this? Not. This is like this is about the John Street situation. So, okay. Betty.
I wanted to bring up, actually, Gerald had.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Do you want to go first, Gerald?
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Betty. And yes, I would like to because I actually want to follow up on Alice's question there and ask Lieutenant Andriano if we could get the status of the landmark listing by our executive meeting, if that's possible, at the end of the month.
Certainly, I'll try and get that for you tomorrow.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Diana, can you follow through with that?
Yes,
we
you
do.
bet.
I was going to say we should have a list of all our landmark facilities, and shame on me for not knowing them, but I should be able to access it tomorrow.
Thank you so much, and thanks for everything you're doing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty, are you ready?
I am. I want to speak as somebody who lives near a parking garage used for law enforcement. It's multiple agency, including the first precinct, here over at 250 VC Street. And the reality is I applaud your good intentions. I know they completely are different from the realities of what I see every single day, where we have over 100 illegally parked people with NYPD placards on their cars. They park along Murray Street, in and out, no standing any time zone so that the vehicles can't get into loading docks. They park where the buses are supposed to go. They block our building so that school buses can't stop. I mean, they're everywhere. And when I asked some about why they were parking on the sidewalk, they said, there's no more street space. So of course we're on the sidewalk. Excuse me, these are the realities. These are the private cars. They're using paraphernalia. They're using expired placards. I'd want to know how many placards are being issued to people in that building, because they're all going to use them. And if they don't, their friends and family members are certainly going to use them, because we see that too. They come in on the weekends, they come in at night, they're carrying roses and wine with them. I doubt they're going to work.
Okay.
So, I mean, these are the realities, and I have a real concern because we just passed in the Transportation Committee, because of the backups on John Street for the schools that are there and the school buses that can't get access to the sidewalks. This is only going to make it worse because they don't care about the DOT signs. They park in no standing any time zones all over Battery Park City. So all law enforcement is going to be completely gone in terms of where they park. And so what guarantees can we get? First Precinct has done nothing about Battery Park City. What are they going to do for FIDI?
Okay, Anthony or Rory, do you have a response?
So over on Vesey, it's over there, it's separate from us. Our area of responsibility is just the World Trade Center site. And that is a completely separate entity. But as far as our personnel, I ensure that they're legally parked, and I'll give you my number. If you see a vehicle that's not where it should be, you can call me whenever you like, and I'll rectify it, we'll remedy it, and ensure it doesn't happen again.
I think that's a good start, but they say exactly the same thing here and have been for the last 6 years. So excuse me for being a little bit dubious about this, but even the First Precinct and the precinct that is unmarked, that is located at 250 VC, but is only affiliated through the First Precinct, there is no control whatsoever over what the people do. And I don't have a car, so I'm not looking for parking space. I'm looking for them to allow the roads to function.
Okay, it sounds like that's not part of the First Precinct. It's a
It
different.
is.
It is.
It is
It
part of
is.
the First
It's a joint-
Precinct.
It is, Laura. It's a joint task force. Betty, I mean, we approved it. They did the same thing when they came to us for their location. They had plenty of parking, and it's just not functioned as promised.
So, okay. Are there any other issues besides the parking that anybody, so we have the landmarks as a kind of side thing, and then it sounds like the main snag is the concern about being overrun with these cars. But what I'm hearing is that people view this use as an asset to as an asset to the community. So we can either do a resolution where we say no unless ABC, or we could say yes with the conditions of DEF. Is there any sentiment in either direction?
Oh,
What's that? Joe, you okay?
yeah.
Sounds like Joe.
I
Joe woke up.
I just lost you. But now that I have you, what conditions are you going to put in this resolution?
Well, do you want me to read you what I've noted?
That would be nice.
Okie dokie. The conditions, what I've heard is the building is basically welcoming this World Trade Center command, that the command has said there will be no sirens, that they're committed to maintaining garage access for the residents, for especially for ADA access, for moving big stuff in and out, and the command is committed to being a good neighbor. They've also said, well, we've heard different things. I think one of the conditions would be that no police vehicles would be parked on the street either at all, or we can say in illegal spots like at fire hydrants, crosswalks, etc.
What are we going to say about parking?
That's what I'm talking about.
I know, but what are we going to say directly about the, I slipped my tongue, what they have in the window?
The placards.
Yes.
Well, I don't think, I mean, it doesn't sound to me like we control whether placards are issued to the World Trade Center command. And in fact, I'm sure that's one of the perks of being a police person. And so I think that the main thing is we need to find a kind of modus vivendi with this command that keeps our streets unoccupied by their vehicles that sound like what we're hearing.
I think that's one of the most important things, their use of the placards, and we know it's horrible, particularly in our area. And I think something relating to placards should be in the resolution.
We could try.
Can I ask that you open it up to the public before we write our resolution, or?
Oh, yes, sure,
And also, I just have
okay.
one question that I just had, which to the folks presenting is,
okay.
So is there a likelihood that we could see less placard parking as a result of moving off Erickson Place at Erickson Place and along Varick Street?
Yes. Yes.
For Anthony, I guess. That's a yes?
Yes.
Great. And then just additionally, you are making a distinction, and I think it's important in the resolution we do the same, that there are department vehicles, which are understandable and have the 29 spaces or 24 or whatever it is. And then there are the 147 personal vehicles, which are separate. So there's personal vehicles and then there's department vehicles. Is that correct?
Those are two separate things. The garage is just for the department vehicles.
Right. And so the personal vehicles are generally the vehicles that we're talking about that are getting these placards.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so those are things to note in I hope to be able to note in the resolution. And then I see that we do have somebody in attendees. So thanks.
Okay, thanks for reminding me about that, Alice. So Anna Goldstein, did you have a question? Can she be unmuted? I don't know if she's muted, maybe
Anna,
by the system.
I sent you a request to unmute. If you're with us, Anna, we'd love to hear your question or comment.
Okay, I don't see any other hands or any other people, unless I'm missing something. Alice, are you seeing somebody?
No, I had
besides...
something I wanted to say. This is Betty.
Oh, okay, Betty.
What you were just discussing before, what I would say for adding, based on my experience, would be a pledge from the parking enforcement unit down here that they will ticket and tow any car, even with a placard, even with an NYPD, Port Authority, or anything else placard, if it is parked illegally for parking.
Okay, I mean, is that?
Yeah, because that's the big problem here. They park everywhere, and the parking enforcement will not come into the neighborhood. And when they did, and I talked to them, they said, we can't ticket them because they'll come and they'll kind of bully us, and we kind of want to be where they are.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah. So if we can get some kind of pledge from them that they will actually try to follow through, that's the best we can do.
Oh, okay. Does anybody else have an opinion about that idea?
I would just point out that the permits have limits on them.
They don't.
So I think we should take a look at what's on the permit. There are areas where you could use a permit and where you cannot.
But Betty's point, Paul, is that it's not enforced and that we can't put pressure on the enforcement because because of the internecine relationships at the police department.
All right, I thought she was basically getting at expanding the permits not to be workable anywhere.
No, sorry, I just want to answer this, that no standing anytime was created by the DOT specifically to not allow placards. It's one of the few places where they're not allowed.
Right, I agree.
Along River Terrace, it's solid placards. It's all solid, no standing anytime zone. And it was because the fire department said they needed that space and clearance to get hook and ladders through to service the high rises in case of a fire. It's not enforced. When there was the crisis at Halloween, when they ran down the bike lane and killed the tourists, it was almost a farce. The people came running out of 250 VC Street to move their cars that were illegally parked with placards because they knew very well the emergency crews couldn't come in.
Okay, so I think, so Anthony and Rory are hearing this. This is like a critical issue to the deal. Is what can you do to help enforce this problem?
So like I had mentioned earlier, we're going to encourage everybody to take mass transit since there is literally like little to no parking. And I'm going to go out there every day and look around and make sure nobody's parking illegally from our command. And you guys can call me if you see anybody from the World Trade Center command illegally parked, just let me know and we'll handle it. We'll take care of it.
Okay, so Betty, are there any opinions? Is that
yeah, and just to add to that, we're not there to be a hindrance. We're there to help. So, for example, anybody in the building needs assistance with anything, we're right there. We're available. Any issues, just they can feel free to let us know. We might be counterterrorism, but we're still the police. So
okay,
we're there to help.
Okay, so do we want to make this a resolution in favor of the command occupying this building with some stipulations? Is everybody good with that? Okay, so should I do it?
Actually, Laura, this is Rosa. I have a quick question. Is there any possibility of you guys getting more parking? So actually leasing more parking than just for the department vehicles, but actually leasing space for your personal use vehicles so that then there is some actual possibility of not having those vehicles on the streets. So if you're looking at, let's say 40% of each shift, then that would be approximately 24 vehicles or a doubling of the space that you're currently planning on leasing.
You know, I would love to say we'd be able to secure more parking, but again, we'd have to turn back to OMB. It's not something that's typically funded. We're very lucky that they saw the need for this specifically, but I do not believe we'd be successful in getting any additional financing or funding for more parking.
Okay, so can I put a resolution on the table that we approve this move with the stipulation that this division of the police encourage their force to take public transportation to work and to not park illegally on the streets and to try to avoid parking on our streets at all with the placard parking and what else? Like the things I said before, the no sirens.
Question, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay. So because we have the concerns about the placards and how many they have, and the captain has already expressed that his team should not be driving their personal vehicles to this location for commuting purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Placards are to be used elsewhere. I'd like that actually to be noted very specifically, as he so graciously pointed it out, because he said it. So we are hoping.
Okay. Okay, that's a good. So Diana, are you getting all this down, or should I be doing this?
Yeah, I can refer back to, for the resolution, I can refer back to exactly what was said and note it specifically in the resolution.
Laura, can I interject while I'm not
Please
obviously voting on the resolution? And I'm sorry if you said this already. I just wanted to make sure that it's in there that one condition would be that the applicant work with the residential board at 80 John Street to make sure that there is no impact, no materially adverse impact to the residents in their ability to access through that space.
Yes, I said something like that, but not as
Great.
terse. So
Thanks.
terse
Sorry.
is always better. That's good. Okay.
Thanks.
Laura, the officers also said that they would enforce illegal placard parking in the area, and so maybe we could put something in there about that, and we have a contact with them to be able to identify illegal parking, placard parking.
Okay.
I have my hand up. I was going to say exactly the same thing. There should be a This is Colin Mahoney, by the way. There should be a mechanism for a rapid response system. I'm not a placard expert like some people are on this board, but if there's a rapid response setup where we can actually enforce placard abuse, I think that would be pretty good for this.
Okay.
It's not something we're opposed to at all. It's actually encouraged. As Rory said earlier, he'll certainly give you his phone number. And then as soon as this office is operational, which could be a couple of years from now, you'll have the number to the main desk, which will be manned 24/7. So it certainly would be your fastest and quickest ability to have a rapid response.
I'm not doing anything.
Okay, I'd like to.
Line, though.
Okay, Colin, do you have more? Can we move forward with a resolution?
Look, they said we sent a 60 MA code to Jay Lerner, right?
Yeah.
So I went to my mail.
Wait, what?
Joe, mute yourself, please.
Don't worry.
Okay. Guys, we're going to move forward. We have a really big agenda tonight, and I'm sure Patrick is eager to take the reins again.
It's Vicky Cameron. Can I just add, I did a quick check now, and I think that the police precinct at 16 Erickson is in a landmark district, but it's not a landmark building itself.
Okay. So we know that, but thank you. And
I'm sorry, I missed that if you knew that. I'm sorry.
Laura, can you add that CB1's been assured that the building from where they're moving at 16 Erickson, which is in a historic designated district, will remain a police precinct for the foreseeable future, and that the community board would be notified immediately if anything were to change in that building in terms of its use. Something to that effect.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So with all those things, can we move forward and take a vote? All in favor?
Yes.
Let's just say, is anybody opposed? Are there any opposed to this resolution? Okay. Are there any recusals?
Recused.
Okay. Are there any abstentions? Okay. So we're good.
It carries.
It carries. Thank you, everybody, for being so cooperative on my first time running a community board committee meeting. And now we're going to adjourn for a few minutes, not even a few minutes, for a pause so that I can officially hand this back over to Patrick.
Great job, Laura.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.